Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tech Talk Thursday. A week has gone by so quickly, but here we are again, and we have an amazing guest for you coming up in a couple of minutes. We're joined by the amazing Ella Glasgow, who'll be talking to us about all her history of being an amazing vocalist and then going into live production and events and all the stuff that she does. But as ever, I'm back here in Portugal now, and my co-host is right here waiting for me. Reference there to Richard Marx from the 1980s. Martin, hello, welcome. How's it going?
Good morning, good evening, good lunchtime, whatever it is, wherever you are. People out there in Radio Land, welcome to sunny Scotland. And it is sunny today. I was out yesterday by the beach, having pizza, wearing my shorts. Now, I can't say that very often in Scotland, I can tell you, but I was.
Excellent.
So that can be confirmed. If our intern Sam is watching, then Sam, say hello and confirm we were at the beach yesterday having pizza.
Amazing. Pizza on the beach.
It's been a busy week.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of new things happening, but I think a couple of I've just upgraded Ideogram AI to the latest version. But my favourite thing this week actually was an upgrade to a package which I always forget the name of, so I'm going to have a look what it's called. Clean Shot.
Ooh.
And it's a package that I use for capturing screen recordings. So if you're ever creating any training courses or a little bit of video, it's very, very good at capturing screen recordings. But one of the things it never used to do was capture a scrolled screen. So if you were on your screen and you scrolled up and down, it just stopped capturing it. But now they've added a feature that allows you to scroll up and down the screen and capture stuff. So if we're doing any video recordings, I'll be using that quite happily. So
Fantastic.
Go and have a look at that. Anybody who has that requirement, it's next to nothing. If it's not free, I don't think it is free.
No, it's not
But
free.
It may
You
be
have
like
to pay for it.
$10 or $20. Yeah,
It's dirt cheap. I think I got it as a bundle with Cursor Pro and a few other things that you can get as well. So it's all good stuff. So you finished your painting? Have you? It's all good?
I finished let's say phase 1.
Phase
Phase
1.
2 is
All
about
right.
to commence.
Okay.
And I'm about to cough, so I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, you go mute yourself because we are ready to bring on our very special guest today. I'm just going to look in the green room and see if Ella is ready. Give me a thumbs up, Ella, and then if you're good to go. She's waving. Well, that means she's good to go. So let's bring on our guest, Ella Glasgow. Welcome to the show. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello,
I'm
Ella.
so glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. We've been looking forward to getting you on the show for some time, and obviously now our diaries have synchronized, and here you are. So we have somebody who's saying hello as well. So we've got Stefan in the house all the way from sunny Sweden. Let's hope it's sunny.
Wow.
Watching us on LinkedIn. Well, thank you so much, Stefan. So Ella, welcome to the show. And for those people who have not met you before, maybe you'd like to just tell all the wonderful people in Radioland who you are and give us a little bit of a history of you.
Well, I am Ella Glasgow, and I am a virtual event, excuse me, apparently we've all got the coughs today, a virtual event producer and a singer, musician, and love doing everything with video. But I got my start with producing events specifically in 2020, back when maybe a lot of us got our start. But I've been on video long before that. At the beginning of live streaming, I was there on the Facebooks.
On the Facebooks, right? So that's
on
where you started your
on
journey.
the Facebooks.
Wow.
That's where I started my journey. Yeah. So it's been a wonderful journey. I love the changes that have happened and the things that have come along since then. It's a lot easier now to get people on video and to meet you on a Zoom call than it was, back in 2012 when nobody knew what it was just yet. So
Yeah, Zoom wasn't like even a big thing. I mean, I'd heard about Zoom back then, but everybody was using either Skype or
exactly.
Back in the day, Teams. Was it still called Teams? I don't know, something like
Yeah.
that. But so there was the old school stuff. So maybe I could just go back a little bit further. So you are an accomplished singer and a performer. And could you just tell us a little bit where all that started? Where did you literally find your voice, and how did you know that you were going to become a performer? If I may go back.
So Yeah, where I literally found my voice. So I'd always wanted to be a singer when I was a kid, and I was inspired by one of my aunts, who I interviewed sometime last year, who used her name's Gloria Scott, and she still has albums you can go and get. But she was an original ICAT, and when I would go and visit my mother in California, I would stay with her sometimes, my Auntie Go-Go, as we call her. And I dreamed of having this beautiful closet like her, and she had all these gorgeous costumes, and I wanted to have all of that. And so that's kind of where it all started. But the interesting thing was that everybody in my family sang on my mom's side, and I wanted to be like them and do all of those things. And so I worked at it in the best way that I knew how. I didn't really have voice lessons or things to speak of until I got to college. But I did everything I could, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in a place that really encouraged my gift. The church that I went to encouraged my gift, and was lucky enough to be able to do at least things there with them. And then I got to college and studied it, and got a degree in both classical voice and commercial voice because I wanted to sing all of it. So, and then from graduating college, that's kind of where the professional start happened. I started performing professionally probably when I was 18. So that was before college. I was the youngest person to perform at one of the amusement parks that was in my hometown. And I was 17 when I started, actually, I should say. And then professionally was Disney Cruise Line, was the first place that I worked for outside of that, and that was directly out of college. And if we have time, maybe I'll tell you the audition story of that, because it's a pretty crazy one.
Oh, we'll make time. I mean, if it's a crazy story,
We'll make time.
Let's hear it right now. This show is going to be 3 hours long, so let's go.
So okay, so if you're someone who's auditioned for things and you know what the protocol is, the things you need to have in place to audition. I had just graduated from Belmont University, and over the years, my parents lived in Panama City, Florida. That's where I grew up. And my father worked in IT and was doing things with the Workforce Center. He was like the head person for the state of Florida. And he would always go on trips, and some of my family would go with him whenever they would go. Graduated. I had never gone with him on a trip, and he was going down to Orlando. And I was like, hey, can I go with you this time? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then I suddenly got this idea. I said, since we're going to be in Orlando, do you mind if I audition for Disney while we're there? He was like, why not? Keep in mind, I had just graduated from Belmont, which was in Nashville, Tennessee. I did not have any of my sheet music with me. A lot of my stuff was still in Nashville. So on the drive down to Orlando, I called Disney and said, hey, do you have any auditions happening this weekend? And they said, actually, our monthly audition is coming up tomorrow. And I was like, great, I'll be there. So I just random get there. And that particular day, the day was going not well for many people. It was one of those audition days where they would call people in, and like 2 seconds later, they cut them off and they're out. So everybody's sitting outside the door, just like, oh God. I am just like, I'm excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. While everyone else is twiddling their thumbs, like in nervousness. So I get inside, and remember, my sheet music is back in Nashville. I found one piece of sheet music when I drove down. And so they said, thanks for coming in today. What have you got for us? We're really looking forward to hearing you. And I said, so I've got the 2 songs that I'm going to do today. Because you have to audition with 2 contrasting pieces. I said, I'm going to do River Deep, Mountain High, and I think it was God Bless the Child. And they're like, great. I said this as I'm walking over to the pianist with the single piece of sheet music that I have, which was God Bless the Child. And so they said, great, that sounds wonderful. Which one would you like to start with? I said, I'm going to start with River Deep, Mountain High. And they said, oh, love it. And I said, and it will be a cappella. You should know you do not do a cappella at Disney. That is not the way you audition. Oh. But they had already said yes.
Okay.
Not only did I sing through all of River Deep Mountain High, they were tapping their feet, clapping their hands, and they asked me to sing the second song. And then they asked me to sing, they said, hey, have you ever thought about being on a cruise ship? And I was like, I've dreamed of being on a cruise ship ever since I was 17 years old. And they're like, we want you to sing this song, sing through Circle of Life for us. And I was like, okay. And they bring in the sheet music for it, Circle of Life. And then, and they're like, this is great. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call. And Disney Cruise Line was my first cruise ship.
Well,
and I did cruise ships for 8 years after that.
Bravo. And let's just go back a little minute and just re-emphasize the fact that you are the only person that I've met who's cold called Disney. Now that's if people are worried about sales, if you can cold call Disney and say, I want to be on your show, done. Fearless. So if anybody ever comes to me and says, I can't make these cold calls anymore, I'm not going to be doing cold outreach DMs. This lady called Disney.
We have an example.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that line is like still a thing. I can tell you that since then, I was being stupid. I went back to audition for them for something and I didn't have my sheet music and they called me flat out. They were like, what are you doing? You should know better. This is like, 10 years later. Clearly I know better.
You didn't learn anything. But you should say, well, 10 years ago, you let me in. I mean,
like you hired me.
What's your problem? That's a great story. Wow. Okay. And then the rest is history, as you say.
The rest is history.
Wow. We were speaking just before Martin joined us on the pre-show about you having this repertoire of 300 songs that you sort of had over the years, right? So you'd learned all these songs. So basically people could just say, yeah, you've got all these 300 songs, we'll just pick a few, and you could just go ahead and for the memory of them all to start with.
Yeah.
So we were just talking, because obviously there's something potentially coming up soon, and now you don't have that repertoire of 300 anymore. What would you say is your sort of limit at the moment? Can you remember like maybe 150 of them or 100 or... We're not testing you, by the way. We're not asking people.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I've never actually really counted. I have a strange memory for songs. So, like that list that I was telling you about that I have on that particular website right now is not all 300 songs. I just put the ones that I knew were in my rotation. And the reason why I got those 300 songs was from a cruise ship gig. I was in one of the bands called the Howlcats on Holland America. And it was a book of 300 songs. And they had tasked us to learn at least 15 songs a week during our 3-month contract. And apparently that was not happening with all the girl singers until Ella came along and learned all of them. But I also could read I had the sheet music in front of me every time. So for me, but I was also one of the first singers that they had that actually read sheet music. So that was another piece of the puzzle. It was easy for me to learn them because I could just read it.
Fantastic. Well, there's a lot of Disney love in the room at the moment. So let me just pull up a couple of comments. So we've got Park Bros who says, as a Disney podcast, I am loving this, which is cool.
Yay!
We've got James in the house. Hey, James, thank you so much. You're a Disney alumni and right now and loving this too. Fantastic. There you go. And James also mentioned about your powerful TED Talk that I was mentioning just before we got on air. So, we could potentially talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, a lot of Disney fans in the house. Wow. So where do we go next with your journey? So obviously singing was a big thing for you. And how long were you a singer and performer for before you got into the virtual event space? 20 years? Like
about 20 something years.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a long time.
I
just stopped counting at 20. So
you get to that point at a certain time of your life that you just don't start counting anymore.
You could have been in IT for 30 years.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, let's not talk about
Considering my father was in IT and grew me up on, programming Commodore 64s, it's a possibility.
Commodore 64. I remember Commodore 64s. Marvelous. I started with the Sinclair Spectrum. I think that's where I started trying to program my own little adventure game at the age of...
Right.
I'm going to date myself here. How old was I? 14, 15?
Yeah.
Right.
I started about there as well. But I did have a 64 as well.
Ah. Yeah, the cool kids had the Commodore 64, and the sort of the ones who were pushed in the corner and bullied had the Spectrum. That's the way I looked at it anyway. So
See, I didn't know I was a cool kid. Look at
yeah,
that.
there you go.
I mean,
cool
you
kids
know.
have the Commodore. There you go. Says a lot about who's the cool kids in this room right now, but I'm just let's just move on.
And I had like two brothers, and the Commodore 64 went from a VIC 20, I think, to a Commodore 64 at Christmas time. So 3 of us would be there. There was one box to open between 3 of us, and, and it's not particularly good for sharing, is it? Really?
No.
Really? No.
No.
Who got to open
Did
it
they at
then,
least
Martin?
like give you a code book with it so somebody could open a code book and open
Somebody had a joystick to
My
open.
dad was
somebody had the
teaching us
code book.
coding it too. We're all doing our own coding by that point.
right?
So, it just meant it had continuous use. It never ever got turned off. That's all. It's my turn to have an hour on it now. So.
Did you have a favourite game? I know this is slightly off topic, but I love retro technology. Did you have a favourite game, either of you, on the Commodore?
My favorite on the Commodore, I know I had Pit,
Right.
but on subsequent computers, I remember my cousins and I would have massive pinball battles.
Ah,
That wasn't on a Commodore. I don't remember what computer that was, but yeah, Pit was the game that I programmed myself in. I think it was probably 100 and something pages of
oh
code
gosh.
that had to be put in, and I remember at least missing I missed some letter.
I'm not
and
going
had to start all over again.
I'm not going to say kids today don't know they're born, but putting in hundreds of lines of code from a computer magazine, which probably has a little typo in it, and there's no autosave, right? So if your power goes
Right.
out or you hit something, I remember on the Spectrum, it had a very dodgy power supply. So I'd be typing in, and it's a rubberized keyboard, and there's a little sort of connector on the back. You breathe on it, and that's it. It's gone.
Yeah.
Start again.
This is where my persistence came from.
I think you have to be tenacious and be a very persistent person if you're a computer programmer back in the 80s. My goodness.
Right.
Martin, do you have a favourite Commodore 64 game that you remember?
I think my favourite game was Defender.
Oh yeah.
Now, it used to exist, and a little rocket would fly around, and you would pilot the rocket around as an arcade game, and it was really cool. On the Commodore 64, it was really rubbish, but you still loved it anyway. The graphics were terrible. Things would go, you'd fly through something, and you were meant to go bang, and you didn't, and then you would bang into something that wasn't there, and stuff like that. But we would still hammer away at the keyboard, and by this time the Commodore 64 had joysticks as well, so
That's right.
we were delighted to have a joystick to move things around, even if it didn't actually move them around where you wanted it to. So
Kempston joystick, I remember.
still
I think one of the
loved it.
names, something like that. We've got Chris in the house. Hey, Chris, thank you for joining us. He's also subscribed to a Commodore magazine back in the day, and remember entering all that code. Yeah, old school. See, we should form a new show called, Commodore Geeks or Us or something.
Yeah, I must tell you a funny story around that while I'm at it. So one of the first jobs that I had when I was 17 was working in a burger bar on a motorway service station, and we had great fun because there was no pressure. You just flipped burgers and had a good laugh and a good time. But every now and again, because it was on the M1, which is the main motorway to London, there'd be a big crew of football supporters or soccer supporters would come in on loads of buses and cause trouble. They would go and steal things from the shop and turn over the ice cream hut in the middle of the car park and things like that. And one day they came into the big foyer where there was a load of these arcade machines, and they were all big arcade machines. One in particular was a Star Wars machine that you sat in. So you sat in this machine. It was brilliant. They decided they were going to take it on the bus with them.
No way.
The police were all coming around as they're six of them are trying to lift, quite drunkenly, this thing through the main doors of the foyer. and out and get it on. It was never getting on the bus. It had trouble getting it through the main doors of the foyer. It was not getting on the bus, but they were trying anyway.
These things aren't light as well.
So that's
from
when
memory, right?
when video games took 6 people to lift them up and move them around.
The good old days. The good old days.
Oh man.
So anyway, after your sort of musical journey, you obviously decided to transition, and you can tell us the story of how that came about, into sort of hosting and helping people with their virtual events. So how did all that start, and sort of what made you want to sort of get into this crazy world of online events and production?
Right.
Because it's a crazy world, isn't it?
It is a crazy world. It is a crazy world. It got started because I needed it. And at the time that everything shut down over here, at least in Ohio, I had a class that I was teaching online for creatives and entrepreneurs of creatives specifically, of how to start their businesses. And that particular week that we shut down, I had taught them about see the need, feel the need. That's what I call it anyway. And gave them a class on that. And that week also, I was getting things together for my son's birthday party. We were planning to have a little pizza making party for him and have all his little friends over. He was turning 5 years old. And then all this craziness started happening. And I said to my husband, what are we going to do? Because we had just handed out invitations to his class. We didn't know any of the parents to be able to reach out to them if anything was going to change. And my husband was like, I don't know. And I said, what if we did it online? Which wasn't a foreign concept to me since I'd been online since 2012. So, and teaching anyway. And so he was like, that's weird. But he's gotten used to all my cockamamie ideas. So, so I didn't say anything further. I just kind of sat, as you know, we entrepreneurs do from time to time. We just kind of go and stew and build stuff in the quiet. So I went and built stuff in anticipation. So I went to ask his teacher, could he reach all the people? She said, yes. What are you planning on doing? I said, I can't tell you what my world plans of domination are. Just know that I've got something going on. So they shut it down that Friday. Saturday, I found virtualbirthdayparties.com was not taken, and bought it, put up a website for virtual birthday parties, went to my networking group and said, hey, last week I was looking for singing gigs and coaching clients. Today I bring you virtual birthday parties. And they said, this is such a great idea. And the thing was, at 5 years old, I knew I wasn't the only parent. My son at 5 years old, I knew I wasn't the only parent that needed something like that, because how wild and crazy it must have been for some parents to have to say to their 4 or 5 year olds and say, you're having a birthday party, all your friends are coming over, but just kidding, there's driving by. Bye!
So as the world is locked down.
Like,
yeah.
Right? I was like, no, this shall not be the way for my child. So because I'd been online for so long, I already knew how to make that happen online. Because I'd worked with kids in my voice coaching studio for so long, I already knew how to do that online. So that next week, I told my creatives at that point, I said, here's an unintentional case study. I saw the need. I had the need. I filled the need. I've changed nothing that I do. I simply use different words for a different audience.
Right.
And then it was born. And it literally started with there. I hosted parties for kids around the world, and then then people started asking me for doing business stuff. And I said, let me get this under my belt first to make sure that I know what I'm doing before I start doing business stuff. And once I got that, I said, I'm ready to go. And the first thing we did was a hybrid event for a bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
did my crew and I know what we were doing? No.
Of course not.
But we sure did make it look amazing.
So take me back to, obviously it was born out of the necessity with lockdown. So from a geeky perspective now, what technology did you use then? How were you sort of hosting this? What sort of systems were you using in order to be able to host this virtual event for your son's birthday party?
I used Zoom back then and I use Zoom now. I told you, I have been on Zoom since 2012 when it was introduced, because I was tired of Skype and having to do my lessons over Skype. It was so much easier to do them over Zoom. So I've been on that train. And that's what I used for the birthday parties because I knew it was easy. And at that time, it was being introduced to everyone. That was my main thing. It's what I've preached always whenever I work with a client. Don't try and use a system that is brand new, because at this point there are 137,000 different virtual event platforms, and you want your audience to get on the brand new thing that you haven't even figured out yet. How do you expect them to figure it out and have a great experience? So go with what's familiar and make that familiar place something that's distinct and specific to your particular event. So that's how I've been rocking it this whole time.
Back in the days when Zoom was just that horrible yellow logo, I think. Wasn't it yellow or something back in the day?
Was it yellow?
I think it was, yeah.
Back in the day, it was
I don't
yellow.
even remember
Yeah.
it being yellow.
Yeah, because I
Oh my
remember
gosh,
seeing
it's
Zoom
been-
and Skype. They were like the two competitors, but I only started playing with Zoom at work, obviously, when lockdown
Right.
happened, and so it was Teams or Zoom, and then obviously Zoom had a couple of issues with Zoom bombing. You know, that nice term that things happen to people during their calls, but obviously it's got a phenomenally
But was
better
it really
back then.
Zoom's fault? It wasn't Zoom's fault.
No, not really. I mean, you know, you're advertising these links out to places. It's all about corporate control and things like that. But it is interesting though, but where you found that technology to use, because I guess back then, and we say back then as if it's 100 years ago. It's not that long ago, but it seems like a long time ago considering the things have advanced so much and so quickly over the past few years. I think it was interesting that probably Zoom had no idea how big they would become, because everybody had to have a way of communicating with people. Yes, you had your phone,
Right.
so FaceTime, you know, was used a lot as well, but for like group sessions, getting people together and
Right.
just being able to collaborate and work again. Yeah, people were just scrambling in this hybrid mode to sort of, you know, get the gear, get your Logitech, was it C920, whatever, the one that everybody
Right.
bought or whatever it might be, whatever
Yeah.
you got a hold of. You just had to sort of have something to be able to do your job, to do your work. And obviously you found another way of using this technology to serve a purpose, to help kids and families who were just, you know, in lockdown and stuck, and you couldn't have your
Exactly.
parties, which is great.
Yeah.
Great thing.
Yeah, and at the time, I'm guessing like Neil and I were stuck on MS Teams all day, all night,
Sorry.
and of course you didn't get that to take home though with you. So even if you were used to the group meetings, it was Zoom that came along and enabled that for the home user as well.
Yeah.
So all of your kids in the kids' party, they're not got sitting at home with Microsoft Teams. So I guess Zoom was the solution.
Yeah. It was the easiest solution, and that was, I had to think, okay, how can I make this really impactful and incredible and tangible, both physically and virtually, because I wanted to have, we were doing a cooking party. So I had to really think through what was going to work at that time, when I knew that some people were in places that could not go to the store to get things. So I had to use materials that weren't going to be hard to get, or if they had it, wasn't going to take over their whole supply for us to do it. So it turned into a sugar cookie party, because I knew we all probably had sugar and we all probably had flour. So, and milk or water. So, I just had to work in that way to make things work on the smallest amount of tools needed to be able to make this party happen and have the kids have fun for more than 5 minutes of story time. I know a lot of people did story times, and I'm sure it was great for a lot of people, but I was like, no, we're gonna have a party, and it will be for 30 minutes, and it's completely possible to keep kids that age completely enthralled for 30 minutes if you know how.
Yeah, and it's really different for them as well, right? They're seeing their friends and their friends' family on the TV or whatever it might be to them. You know, what's happening here? You know, they're not physically in place. And I think the use of Zoom and the fact that you decided to go with Zoom instead of Skype meant that the barrier to entry for people just to simply get online was super easy. And I agree with you. And I think that's why Ecamm, the program that we're using now, is successful with Zoom, because it's a no-brainer. Everybody's used to Zoom, whether it be from corporate to people at home. So it's so easy just to connect and say, I'll send you a Zoom link. They've no idea that we do all this fancy production stuff behind the scenes and make it look like it does. And people still can't get their head around, well, you know, as Martin said many times, you're on a Zoom call. It's just a Zoom call.
You're on a Zoom call.
But it's not. It's a Zoom call on steroids.
But it's not.
It's not.
Exactly.
So from children's parties to running a business and supporting people with events, how did that sort of come about? Where did you start to sort of think around, well, if I can do this for kids, maybe people need some help in doing this as well? Did it all sort of stem from the same, well, we're all in lockdown still. Can I now move on and do something different with this?
Yeah, it was a matter of me being able to understand and figure out the tech of it all. I had an idea of the tech of it all, and I wanted to make sure that I knew it, but also be able to bring it conceptually differently than just a Zoom meeting. Right. Because in my mind, and you guys have seen this, and anybody watching has seen this as well, you go into a Zoom meeting that's supposed to be an event, and I liken it to, you know, coming off the highway going to Disney. And if coming off of the Disney highway, you see the beautiful signs, you know, because when you get off on I-4 for Disney World anyway, the signs are different color. They're no longer green. They are Disney colors once you get off of I-4. So you know you're getting to Disney. It's the same with your landing pages. You made this amazing landing page. And then imagine if you went and got through the gates at Disney, and when you got through those gates, there was nothing but an empty parking lot. How disappointed you would be. And that's how people are treating their Zoom events. They've got gorgeous landing pages. They send the amazing emails, and then it's just Zoom.
Just a wall of gray, and
just a wall of cameras off, or or somebody's shared screen of slides that they haven't set yet. So
can you see my screen yet?
My God.
Oh yes.
So I knew I wanted to make it a different experience in that, and because I have that Disney background, I knew that I knew how to create something like that. As a performer, that's where my performance side comes in. I'm bringing all those years of being on stage, being a part of original productions, being a part of productions that have already been put together, and being a part of Disney, being brainwashed by the mouse into the event space and making it excellent and making it an entire experience from beginning to end and after. So once I sorted out how that could happen, like I said before, the first event that we did was for a bank, a hybrid event that started one way and then ended up being something completely other than what they had told us originally. Right. But we made it work. And from there, that particular client actually told the Better Business Bureau about us before she had even had her event done. And they had hired us before her event had even happened. Right. That hybrid event was just a couple of hours. The Better Business Bureau event was 3 days.
Wow.
And thankfully, I had a full team at that time because I'm quick. I called my friends who were in video production. I said, well, clearly we're not doing that event at Disney this summer. Y'all wanna hop on this crazy train and see if we can figure this out? They're like, sure, let's go. And it began from there. I literally called my friend who's a DJ for an event that we did at Disney every year for like 10 years. Our friend who was a videographer. And I said, do you have this, 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 and this? And he said, let me check. I've got it all. I said, great. My DJ, can you do this? Do you want to be on screen? You do? Great.
Wow. So it's like a full event, but virtually based on all the people that you had available to you. I bet the bank didn't know what was going on at the time, you know, with all these different things. Because obviously when you mention I'm doing a virtual event for a bank, there's lots of images that go into my head. I've been worked in corporate for many, many years, and you think, this is not going to be terribly exciting, is it? But there you go. You made it your own, obviously, which is really cool.
We did. It was lots of fun, and was really, really proud of the work that we did for all the people that we worked for and put their events on, and really give them something that is worthy of their particular brand and is memorable beyond that moment.
Right. So may I ask you, how did you get into, because you use Ecamm, of course.
I do.
and you're on a Mac. Hurrah! But how did you actually? How did you find Ecamm? What was your sort of? I always ask people who use Ecamm, what was their Ecamm origin story? You know, how did you get involved in it? We've all got our ways of finding tools and using other things, but how did it happen for you?
I knew of Ecamm back in I can't remember when did Ecamm start? Because I knew about it back in the beginning, but I didn't use it.
There was, oh God, you're asking me now. I can't remember. Was it 20? I want to say 20 something.
2016, I want to say.
Something like that. Because they had Ecamm call recorder for Skype.
Right.
And they had a few of the
That's
programs
what I had.
First. Eyeglasses and something like that. They had a few things.
Yeah.
Prior to
So
Ecamm.
I had the Ecamm call recorder. Then I think around that time also was Be Live. And so I was using them. I've gone through StreamYard. I've gone through all the iterations. And I don't remember when I finally went over to Ecamm. I really honestly can't remember when I finally made the switch and said, this is life and this is what I'm sticking with. I just knew that I had also tried OBS for a hot second. I'm just leave it at that. And then
it's true. We've all been there. We've all been there, right? We've all been there, which is it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but I found Ecamm, and my goal at the end of the day, and this is kind of something that we were talking about in the beginning about, you know, the tools that we have and that we use, them having lots and lots of things that they can do, but sticking to the things that, you know, work for you. And for me, while I could probably do that with every single tool, I probably could figure out what works for me with OBS and what works for me with Streamer, all the things. But Ecamm, I felt, made it easier to do that, kind of the way that Mac does. It's a little more intuitive than programs made for Windows. I'm just saying. But
no, I mean, I think it's all about the user experience at the end of the day, right? It's whatever you feel comfortable with. There are a ton of serious OBS users out there who can program the heck out of it. They got all the plugins and they can make that program sing, and that's perfectly fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's people who just want to go on StreamYard. They want a web-based interface. They want one camera. They want to share their presentation. They maybe want to have a virtual camera, and then they're done, and that's it. And then you've got obviously the people in between. So there's a ton of different sort of use cases for this software. But I think it's important to find something that resonates with you, something that you feel comfortable with using, and you have to go through these iterations of trying different pieces of software before you get comfortable with it, I think. And I think that's the important thing, to make the decision and stick with it. But there's always new, you know, shiny new stuff over here that potentially we could have a look at, and so on. We've got one person that's just joined us as well. Hello, Florence. Thank you for joining us again. What I was going to ask you is, one of the things that we see, Martin and I work on different sort of either events, or we join people's Zoom calls and things like that. What's sort of the one thing that people are still getting wrong when it comes to their sort of virtual events? Maybe there's more than one, so maybe give us your top 3 things that mistakes that people make when they're doing their virtual events. I mean, how long have we got? But you know, it is interesting for other people, because what we're trying to do here is help people not make those same mistakes and fall into, even it's just a simple thing of having your presentation ready to go, and not going down the route of, can you see my presentation, or am I sharing my screen, and all that kind of nonsense. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts.
I just saw this happen yesterday, and before I'd seen it happen yesterday, I knew it was something that probably happened often, but the first time I actually saw it was a couple of weeks ago, and that was someone telling their audience that they were the speaker for this particular event, and they told their audience, I'm going to put you in gallery mode so that I can see you all now. And people I know, Martin, Neil, I know that you guys know exactly where I'm going. So people need to realize, you need to realize that what you're seeing on your Zoom screen is not necessarily what your audience is seeing. Even if you have spotlit yourself, the audience has the ability to change their view for themselves. You putting yourself on gallery view does not change the view of your audience. So you don't need to play-by-play them on what you're doing on your side that they cannot see and does not affect them at all.
That's interesting. I mean, why did they care? Why would they care about how I've got this set up? I've got 3 monitors in front of me and I can see you in all day. Who cares, right? It's about the
Nobody
user
cares.
experience, right? It's about
Yeah.
what are you providing for them? I've never
Right.
heard that one
The
before,
other thing
actually.
that I
That's
heard
interesting.
someone's, that's what I'm saying. I was like, oh my God, okay, this is the second time, because the first time that I heard it was in a different way. The person said, hey, I'm going to just put myself on speaker mode so that I'm not distracted by you all. It's your audience. You need to be distracted by them. Don't tell them that you basically just said, I don't want you there.
I don't want you there. That's it. Thanks.
I don't want you there.
I'm kind of hoping nobody's watching at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. We don't care if anybody turns up or not. We're just not bothered. I mean, I talk about going through the motions and alienating everybody that's decided to be giving up their time and be respectful and join you. Wonderful.
And I know they didn't mean, I knew what they were trying to say, but these are the things that you cannot say out loud, because for us as an audience, you are literally doing what Neil just said. You are alienating us. You're letting us know that you don't need me to be here. So don't say that. Just go ahead and put them in speaker mode, but you're also taking away the thing that people complain about virtual events is that there's no human connection. Right. And then tell everybody to turn their cameras off.
Yeah.
How do you expect to connect if you can't see them?
So I've heard there is a term called audience engagement, but I'm not overly bothered about that.
Right. I don't need to see them.
It's like that mask button on Stream Deck where you've got mute all and turn everybody's camera off. We're done. Thank you very much. It's all about me. It is interesting,
we'll
though,
send
isn't
you a
it?
copy of the presentation when we're finished. Yeah.
I think for a town hall in a corporate environment where you're just going through maybe your Q2 figures and how you've done well in EMEA, maybe people don't need to be interacting in that. But if you're hosting an event specifically around an interesting subject matter, you want that interaction. You want to see that connection. If you were in a physical place, and you've got to think of it this way, right? If you're in a physical building and you've got an audience in front of you, do you want everybody to put a bag over their head and put some headphones on?
It's literally what I say, Neil. It's literally what I say.
What you say? Okay. I didn't research that. So, okay, well, great minds then. But that is interesting, though, isn't it? Why would you do that?
I've seen that show on YouTube, I think.
Maybe we've got a new show there. It's called We Don't Care About You.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I always think to that, like I walked into somebody's to a government event. It wasn't one that I was producing, and I've just gotten used to having my camera on so that the speaker can know that I'm there. It's just being a part of the audience, being a nice audience member. When I walked into the event, though, all the cameras were off, and I was like, what is going on? So I turned mine on, and they sure did call me out and said, Miss Ella, if you could please turn off your camera. And to my mind, I'm thinking,
turn it off.
If you didn't want my cameras on, you should have made it a webinar. Why are you in Zoom meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, there is a difference as well. So there is an expectation. And that's a very good point that I think people do miss as well. And that's really good that you've just brought that up, because there is a huge difference between a Zoom webinar that you join and you think, oh, I've got to get dressed up. And some people don't realize, right? You get your stuff on, you get your camera ready, and then you realize it's a Zoom webinar, and all you see is the big Q&A button, and that's it. And that's fine, because obviously if you're just promoting something or just teaching something and you don't want any interaction and you just got Q&A at the end, fine. So make it a webinar. So I think people do make that mistake as well, where they're thinking of doing a webinar and they end up doing a Zoom meeting, and then the opposite of that. So I think that's important distinction between the two. And I've seen a few people get that wrong recently, mentioning no names. I was going to ask you about the fact that you do live streaming as well, obviously, in your own, so you've got your own YouTube channel and stuff. How do you sort of think about topics for your live streams? I mean, we're in the same position here. Every week we're thinking about, well, what topics? Is it going to be something new in AI? We're going to have wonderful guests on like yourself. How do you sort of come up with your ideas around live streaming and topics and content?
It's interesting that you asked me that, because I actually took a break from live streaming for the past couple of months to focus on doing um, straight up pre-recorded videos.
Right.
But when I was doing my live streams, when I had said I was ready to go back to that, I chose a topic that for me, and I chose a format time-wise that for me I could stick to. And I did it for 3 seasons. Um, and the format was being there every other week, or for the first and second Wednesday of the month. And I said, I will get business guests. It's called the Business Breakout. It may come back at some point. I keep saying that it might come back at some point soon. Probably need to do it sooner than later. But I knew who my audience was, and my goal was to bring in people who could speak to my audience. So my audience is small business owners and corporate leaders who are having a hard time showing up the way that they need to show up on camera. So I brought in people that fit that niche, I guess, as it were, people that could speak to that audience. And that's really how I put the topics together. And I don't know if I want to say my secret out loud, but I'm going to say this secret out loud.
You don't have to say
The
it.
secret is, if you go back and watch my episodes, they are all very, they're very well put together, in the sense of, like, each guest, they just meld together so nicely, because I always have 2 guests on. And it wasn't because I sat down and was like, man, I think that these 2 guests should go together. That was just the way it worked out. That is my secret. I would just like to say, it just so happened that everyone worked out together well. I just said, hey, are you available on this date? Are you available on this date? Great. This is the show you're on. And you happen to be amazing together.
That's great. And we find it obviously easy when we have wonderful guests on that can just flow and so on. We've never had any guests that have been, not difficult, but you do get some people, especially when you're interviewing people, or when you're in meetings as well, as I found out with work, and you probably resonate with this as well, Martin, where you've been on calls and you're asking somebody a question. It's like, yeah. And okay, would you like to expand? It's like pulling teeth. Literally, it's like pulling teeth. And that's hard because you've got to then fill that empty, embarrassing, awkward silence. And I think when people start to go live for the first time, I think I wrote something about this recently, and I think you've mentioned it a few times as well. It is very difficult when you're just starting off to go live. If you're just doing a live stream and you don't have any guests and you have some content and you don't really have any followers as well, you're basically speaking to nothing. So you've got to keep going. And that's a hard thing. Do you have any tips for people who are starting out who just want to get good on camera? And practice is obviously the biggest thing. The more you do, the better you'll get. You'll make mistakes, but that's fine. We all start with 0 and all making all these mistakes. Is there a couple of things that you can suggest to people if they are doing lives, not really getting any engagement to start with? What's your things that you could help people with?
Well, the thing that I want people to remember, and I think that most people don't realize, especially when you're first starting out, and I know that Martin and Neil can attest to this, nobody's watching your live. And you have to just get over that. You are not doing the live for that moment. You're doing the live for the replay. The engagement will happen in the replay. So if you can keep that in mind, and speak obviously in the moment, but remember that you're speaking in the moment for the people that are watching later, not for the people that are watching live. And if somebody shows up live, yippee skippy, hooray, but don't expect it until you have an audience.
Yeah, and things fluctuate as well. There's other things going on that people may have. There may be other events going on that people. It's difficult. So, and that's why YouTube, I think, is a great platform, because the organic growth with YouTube, people are watching videos that you've made 5 years ago, and they can still resonate with you, and you can still get advice out of them and things like that, which I think is important.
Yeah, for sure.
So being in the corporate world. So go ahead, Martin. Yeah.
Yeah. So no. I'm just keeping an eye on time, and I want to give Ella enough time to tell us what she's up to next, and perhaps drop in a little bit of a self-promotion.
Okay. So what I'm up to next. Thanks, Martin.
Yeah, thanks for the timekeeping,
Um,
Martin, because I'm terrible at timekeeping, you know.
so right now I have a Rockstar Video Academy cohort, is what I like to call it, where I am taking people through an 8-week course on how to really show up on video and be the voice of your brand, whether that be for a Zoom meeting, for a Zoom training, for any place that you're having to be on video, and be the person that is the one on stage. So from understanding how to, make things look like this as you're seeing right now, to how to actually present on camera and still be authentically you. Because I think that a lot of people get scared that they have to become some other thing, or that they have to be me. And you don't have to be me, because I'm holding me down just fine. Be you, authentically you, on camera, in a way that makes you feel good and represents either the company that you're working for or the brand that you're working, or your own brand. Because the thing is that while in the real world, companies give out, the pamphlets, and they give you all of the paraphernalia that you need to have to do things in the real world, but they're doing very little training on how to do this virtually and giving you what you need to represent them virtually. So I'm here to help you with that, so that you can up-level your sales, because it brings more trust when you are on camera in a way that looks professional, especially if you're selling something that costs more than $1,000. People are not going to pay you $1,000 for you to look like you got a mess behind you.
Absolutely.
So all of those things we talk about, and how to really make those things work for you, your business, your company, in a way that is easy and will not overwhelm you with the tech. Yes, I do talk about Ecamm because it's the bestest, but I have other tools and things to help you, and it will not be overwhelming for both my PC people and, of course, my Mac people.
And remember, this lady, cold Disney. That's all I'm saying. And people can find... we've got a few more questions, but people can find your information on your website, which I think I've got
Yes. Is it okay if I put my little thing up there? Oh, look at you.
I got that ready for you. And
look at you.
And that's going to post in the comments as well. So we've got your site ready to go there.
Is it okay if I show my my little thing here, and then you can
go for
have that there as well?
Yeah. Oh, there it is for the QR code. So we can scan that QR code.
Whoops. Let me put that QR.
There it is.
There.
QR codes are great, right? So easy. Yeah, so people can sign up, and yeah, that would be great. Go ahead, you do it. And
awesome.
I'll put another link in the main description as well on the YouTube side once we've finished this as well, which would be great.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
So
I think it's
go ahead.
I think it's interesting that you're doing all of this, because there is a theme at the moment. There's a lot of people who say all you need to do is just turn on your camera and the content is king, and that will get you through everything. And I keep looking at it and thinking, I can understand that you don't want to put a barrier up. So you do want people to be on the camera as easily as possible. But there are so many simple steps that can make you look much better on camera. And once you've finished on camera, you'll feel a lot better as well. So I'm sorry to all those people who just say, no, just turn your camera on and the content will win. I don't think so. I think personally, there is so much competition, in particular in the business world. If there's somebody else with the same content as you, and they turn up and they look terrible, and you turn up and you look good, the money's coming your way.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. I think that in the beginning of live streaming, that was the answer. And I did that, just showed up as well, while still also being coached at the same time, right? So I had a coach that showed me how to do all of this in the beginning. But the thing that I recognize now is, just like you're saying, Martin, that while there's some validity in just showing up, there are ways, like we're talking about now, for you to be able to have the power of a brand behind you that big brands have, because it doesn't cost that much money. You don't have to spend the bajillions of dollars that big companies are spending to make yourself look appropriate. And as much as I would love to say that, I love all the bells and whistles because that's what we are with Ecamm. We're bells and whistles. But I tell people, if you put bells and whistles on a shitty cake, I hope it's okay that I just said that, but I said it. It's still gonna be a shitty cake. So you have to get all of the things underneath it working, like your background. It doesn't have to be like the background that Martin and Neil and I have. There are so many simple things that I teach my clients to be able to do within the space that they have. Because a lot of times people think, well, I don't have as much room as you have, or one of my clients is literally in a corner in her room. But we use lighting in such a way to make it look like she has a really wonderful space. And it can be portable as well. I know Martin talks about portability of things. I talk about portability of things. And it's easy to make that happen when you have somebody that can either show you or you have the creativity to figure out how to make it work for you.
Definitely. I mean, this is your digital business suit. That's the way we talk about it now, right? And even I'm not going to mention names again, but certain corporate organizations that we see and so on that preach around how to look good and professional on camera, they turn up like they're in their bathroom, with smears over their lens where you can't even see anything. I'm thinking, are we going to take you seriously? And it is important that people will take you more seriously, I think, if you look a little bit more professional. If you've made the effort, it's about making the effort, right? And you only have to make a small piece of effort to go a long way in terms of elevating how you look on camera. And it doesn't have to be, as you said, a ton of different things. We love talking about tech on this show. We're coming up to the top of the hour, but before we let you go, we have to talk around what are you using right now. I've only just noticed that you're using the Hollyland Lark microphone as your main microphone, right? Very discreet. I wouldn't have known. Sounds very, very good, by the way, as well. So maybe can you just talk us through in 5 minutes, if you're okay to hang on for another 5 minutes, about your studio setup, please?
Yeah, so I'm in Ecamm, obviously, as well as you guys are. And so that's what I have for broadcasting, is using Ecamm, a combination of that and Restream. For the other tech, for my camera, I'm actually using my old iPhone 11
oh, wow.
through Camo. Yes, it's set on 4K so that we can have all these wonderful things. But I'm using Camo by Reincubate, which is like my favorite thing. And they've got some things coming down the line. I can't wait for the beta to release. Y'all, look, I'm going to be talking about it in Rockstar Video Academy because I'm on the beta right now.
You heard it here first.
Makes me happy. Yeah. And then, like you said, my microphone is the Hollylark M2. Mm-hmm. And I like being discreet when it comes to the things that I have on screen. That's my personal brand. I have other microphones as well, but I just don't like having the mic in the shot. That's my personal thing.
Sure.
So as much as I can hide it and still sound amazing and make people wonder how I'm doing it, then I'm going to do that, because that's the Disney in me.
There you go.
It's got to be magic.
I wouldn't have guessed it was an iPhone 11, by the way. Did you say iPhone 11? Goodness
iPhone
me.
11. This is what I'm saying, people. It's just not.
Yeah, you don't need a $2,000 camera to look good. It's simple as that. It's crazy. But with Camo as well, we're big fans of Camo. We've had Eden on the show a couple of times, and we love the way that you can just level up how your camera looks just by even taking a crappy webcam to make it look really good. Just a little subtle dialing in of those can just make a huge difference. I'm curious about the nice light behind you, by the way, the one over your right shoulder. This light here, as I'm just drawing on screen.
Which one?
No, the one on the right. No, the other one. Is that a light? This one. There you go. Not near the
my guitar.
Near the guitar.
Oh, that's a microphone for recording.
Oh, it is a microphone.
People's songs.
I thought it was a light. Oh, it's got a pop shield on it. That's what threw me then.
Yes.
It's got a pop shield.
She's like, what light are you talking about? See, if you want to talk tech.
And it's so funny because that's my left. It's my left side. That's why I was like.
Oh, is it? It's very confusing now. I'm confused. Which is your right? Hold up your right hand for me. There you go. Is that one?
Yeah. I'm afraid Neil gets easily confused between lights and microphones and cameras. He can't tell the difference normally.
Or left and right,
it's all right.
clearly,
it's okay.
as well. Anything else you'd like to impart in terms of your words of wisdom before we wrap up today? It's been fun. I think we could have gone on for another hour, but you are more than welcome to come back, because this has been so much fun. And
I would love to come back. I would love to come back. Can we all stop with the green screens? That's my parting word of wisdom.
It's fighting talk. No, it's fighting talk. That's fighting. This guy here is going to be fighting talk right now. That's all I'm saying. But carry on.
But you.
So
look,
that's the interview over. And
thanks for joining us today, Ella.
Martin. But
come
you
back
know
again
why.
when you've got less time.
Right. You know why, Martin? Why I have a bone to pick with green screens, because not everybody is doing it properly, and especially in the corporate world. Businesses, if you're showing up with a green screen, my thing is you need to show up at least 2 steps above what everybody else in the room is looking like. I get this from my years of performing on stage. When I go and perform at a gala where everybody's wearing a gown, my gown needs to be 2 times better than everybody else, because they paid me to be there. Yeah?
Right.
You need to look 2 times better than everybody else in the room. So if you're using a green screen where your ears are falling away, you are keep popping in and out like some kind of magician. This is not helping you to look professional.
No,
it has to do with the fact that the screen is trying, the tech that you're using, Zoom or whatever it may be, to cut out the background is trying to figure out what in the world they're trying to cut out. Because number one, you don't have a real green screen up. So it doesn't know what it's doing. And it's fighting between you and whatever's in your background. You don't have it properly lit. There are so many things that need to happen to actually use a green screen properly. And it will be much better and easier and better for you if you would just simply pick up the paper off of the floor. If you just do that, I mean, it would be,
Zoom virtual background blur is the bane of my life. And especially, where you see people wearing big headphones. Again, no names mentioned, big headphones, and they disappear. And all you can see is through their headphones. Like, what's happening? What's happening? And there's nothing wrong with wearing headphones.
We are not traffic.
But
we are not air traffic controlmen. We are not, unless you are. And
well, headphones are okay, but not when you mix that. Well, there's pros and cons, but when you mix it with Zoom virtual background, where you look like Mickey Mouse, who's gone a little bit wild, Disney reference, then that's just, who knows. But anyway, well, on that bombshell, we'll leave it with green screen. Martin, anything you want to comment on that? Any rebuttal before we get into fighting talk?
I totally agree that people do it so badly wrong, but I can also guarantee you that if I turn up looking like this, I could be on green screen and you wouldn't be able to tell. And
challenge.
I know, because you know how to do it properly. You know how to do it properly, and you do your green screen very well. I mean, I've learned a lot from you coming from green screen. I'm only repeating what I've learned from Martin.
Oh, what you've seen, yeah. 99% of the world, green screen, terrible. We'll teach you how. Come back on another episode.
Definitely, yes, definitely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. I've had so much fun. I never knew there were different signs, first of all, coming off the freeway in the US for Disney. That I've learned something today, having never been to Disney World, Disneyland, wherever. The two, I always get them mixed up. So that's something I've learned. And you've been an inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love you to come back anytime you want to talk about whatever topic. We love talking about tech and virtual events and all kinds of stuff here. So thank you once again, Ella, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Wonderful. If you wouldn't mind hanging around the Zoom for a couple of seconds, we'll just get back to you as soon as we finish the show, which will be in about a minute. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon, Ella. So, what a marvelous guest. Green screen technology. There you go. Well, next time we'll all be on green screen. We'll see what's going on, just to make it sound good.
I have been to Disney and
you have
had a fantastic experience, and you wander around and they've got all the different countries and all these people dressed up in their different outfits for the different countries, and perhaps I'll ask Ella off screen whether they stick with the same country all the time or they change their outfits from French to German to Irish or whatever it happens to be. I must ask that question.
Maybe I'll go one day.
What are we doing next? What
are we doing next? So next week we've got another guest coming on the show, and we'll save it as a surprise. We've got a gentleman, Bob Cartwright, who's coming on. Who's going to talk about. He's got a very different channel, something that we've not had on before, and that tech in that particular area would be quite interesting. So he's prepping and getting that stuff ready for us. So we've got Bob next week. And we've
he's
also
an amazing podcaster as well.
He is.
He's doing podcasting for a million years.
A million years. So he knows a few things about podcasting, which is really cool. We've also still got our course for LinkedIn Live available. Shameless plug here. So you can get a hold of it, click on the QR code and go and grab that course whenever you want. But until next week, we'll be playing with more tech, and there'll be another new AI tool coming out in the next few weeks, as you can probably appreciate. So this time next week, we'll have something new to talk about, no doubt. So a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us again, Ella. And it's goodbye from me here in sunny but slightly overcast Portugal.
And goodbye from sunny Edinburgh. See you again, folks.
Take care. Bye.